Well, hello to you. I'm standing here in the middle of the most magnificent morning in the middle of the African bushveld. I thought this would be very pertinent because what we're doing at the moment is the power morphing exercise with a focus on the financial. And the reason I thought it was important to stand in the bushveld is that there's that analogy of a seed being planted in the ground and it growing and taking time underneath the earth and putting out its root systems and eventually sprouting into either a blade of grass or into one of these magnificent trees that are behind me. And that is what this whole mental process and the power morphing process is all about. At the end of the day, we're learning the most valuable lessons so that we can incubate that seed, we can plant that seed, and we can allow it to grow, and we can allow ourselves to grow into the potential that we really want to be. And as Hannes speaks in Ogma Dino, at the end of the day, we want to strain our potential to be the highest mountain of them all. Everyone this morning is on a huge vibe. You might even be able to hear the music behind. We did firewalks last night and everyone managed to conquer their fears and walk across the fire. I've done it before, but every single time you do it, it's like jumping off a high bridge into water or public speaking. Every time you do it, there's that butterflies, that energy. And last night I set myself my own little personal record, 16 firewalks. Absolutely incredible experience. Now, what were some of the major lessons yesterday? And it's so difficult to sum it up in 5 minutes because it was an intense day full of knowledge and learning. But let me give you some of the 5 that I thought were important. Hannes had a great diagram where everything was explained on one page, where if you've got the inputs, your senses, your seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, your inputs coming in, you then got your RAS, which is your reticulated activated system, that tends to filter those inputs and decide what it wants to do. You've got your internal dialogue, which is your little voice that's constantly talking in your head. And then that leads to your programming, and a lot of that programming, more than 90% of that programming actually came before the age of 7 in your upbringing. That then comes through to your feelings, your emotions, and your thoughts. And it's actually what you actually feel about every circumstance and whether it has a positive or negative meaning to you. Ultimately, it means that you take actions. And finally, it means the type of results that you get in your life. And then constantly there's a balance between the witness, which is your soul or your internal subconscious basically, that's constantly monitoring what you're doing and how you're performing, and the universal truth, which is the universe and God itself and this beauty behind me that is constantly, and the two are intertwined and tapping into each other. And when you live in your zone of genius, it's when they are completely in alignment. And that is what you need to look for. That is when you have true joy, true passion, true happiness. Hannes then spoke of the 4 brains. He said you've got the brain stem, the middle brain, the right brain, and the left brain. He said if you want to achieve any goal in life, you need to make sure that all the brains are aligned, and that when you're doing your affirmations and your goals, that you're appealing to all different of the brain segments, because they all operate and understand in different ways, and you need to be able to understand how they operate and how to motivate and communicate with them so that you ultimately get the results and the intent that you're looking to achieve. He asked a question. He said, why don't we get the results? There's basically 2 major reasons. People either don't have enough intent, they don't really want to get what they actually say they want to get, or they don't have the belief. And what Hannes says is there's 2 different ways. You can have what he calls a resistor, where you don't have the belief and your intent can be here, and then you're never going to be doing it. So there's one way that you can just increase the intent, and that's difficult. You've got to do that through numerous affirmations and self-belief and thinking and everything else. But at the end of the day, there is one other way. If your intent is here, what you can do is look to reduce the resistor. Get rid of that limiting self-belief. Get rid of the emotional charge. And then ultimately, the intent will be more than the resistor, and you'll start to get flow and you'll start to see those results. And really, what we hear this weekend with the power morphing is to look to understand what those emotional charges are and to reduce those resistors. Also to look at how to increase the intent so that you can get the flow in your life and you can ultimately get what you want to achieve out of life. The 4th thing Hannes spoke of, which is concerning, but you need to be aware of it, is he said he wasn't sure when, just like the property market in 2004, 2005, he said he wasn't sure when it was going to happen. He wasn't sure when it was going to peak and start to decline. But it happened. And he says, with regards to the money system, he says hyperinflation and a collapse, a complete collapse in the money system as we know it today is going to happen. He's just not sure when it's going to happen. Now, he's not the only one saying that. There's a lot of commentary around the world, and people say, well, what the hell am I going to do? Something very interesting is that Stephen Covey speaks about integrity and trust being the currency of the future. And at the end of the day, I believe that if you've got that integrity and you've got that trust, and ultimately you can provide massive value to people, then you will be fine in the coming, what is to come. But you need to learn, you need to teach yourself those skills, you need to do all these courses. Basically, you need to upskill your knowledge so that you can counteract, because the ways of the past are going to change, and they're going to change fast. And if you're not upskilled, you're going to find yourself in tremendous trouble. The fifth one is intent. Now, when you've got an intent and you really want to get something done, at the end of the day, if your intent is strong enough, you will find a way to do it. I mean, take this tree behind me. It grew up in this arable land. It had intent to sprout into a tree, and no matter what, it achieved it. It ultimately broke through the surface and now grew into a magnificent tree. And you've got to find that intent. You've got to find the real reason, the why behind you so badly want to actually get something done. But you've got to be careful, because your ego will get in the way. Your ego wants to keep you where you are. Your ego is satisfied with the mundane and the norm. And at the end of the day, it likes complacency because it's where it is. It's what it likes to expect. But you've got to strive your potential. Your witness is constantly yearning for growth. It's one of the fundamental needs. You've got to constantly be pushing yourself for a higher level. And ultimately, you've got to learn how to silence the ego, how to control the ego, and ultimately take control back of your life so that the intent that you want to achieve, you can go out and achieve. And just an example of that is, how do you feel about money? When you talk about money, what does it make you feel, basically? Do you feel great? Do you feel happiness? Do you feel comfortable? Or does it scare you? Are you nervous? Because just think about that alone, and that will give you a huge indication between your resistors, your beliefs, and what your intent is. Because most people want to be financially free or have financial abundance, but what are you actually doing about it? And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, the very last one, I've already mentioned it, it's all about developing yourself. If you're not developing yourself, that is the most important thing that you need to be doing to be able to thrive in the coming years, the coming months. At the end of the day, you owe it to yourself so that you too can have the most magnificent life that you want. So, from the middle of Africa, on the most magnificent, that's my feedback from day one. I can hear day two starting, so it's time to get out there. Great. Thank you very much. Chat to you soon.